To tell you the truth, Sora, I was jealous of you. When did I start harboring that feeling? I thought about this as I sat next to Sora on the dark margin. Was it when Sora became a hero of the Keyblade? Or did I feel that way when we were still on the islands, from the time when we were kids? There's nothing strange about me thinking I'm higher on the totem pole than Sora. After all, an age difference of a year was huge when we were kids, and I used to act like Sora's big brother and take him places. When did that change? We defeated Xemnas, but the darkness was deep here. The realm of darkness, where we could have defeated thousands of Heartless, and they'd still keep coming. My strength, nearly spent, I fell to my knees.
Riku!
Sora helped me up. Sora, I can't... It was difficult to breathe. I felt like I couldn't walk anymore.
Don't say another word. It's not over. It's just not.
He put my arm over his shoulders and stood. Sora never gives up at a time like this. How can you say that? Even if we could go on. Look where we are. I felt like that was a level-headed conclusion. But Sora smiled and looked ahead of us.
Come on, Riku. You've been hanging out in darkness too long. You gotta try and think positive.
He started to walk. My footsteps were heavy as I leaned on him. I couldn't walk anymore. I didn't want to walk anymore, I thought. Sora? Hearing his name, Sora examined my expression with a smile on his face. When he made a face like that in a situation like this, I had no choice but to do what he wanted. I lifted my head, like Sora, and gazed ahead into the darkness. You lead.
Got it.
He nodded, pulling me along as he walked. How far would this darkness go? I'd walked a lot of dark paths, but this might have been the first one that didn't have a way out. But even on a path like this, Sora kept walking. You know, I spoke up, and Sora looked at me again. He had a pained expression on his face, and saying this made my chest tighten. I told him something I'd never spoken of before. It was like a repentant confession. I always figured I was better at stuff than you.
Really?
But Sora's reaction wasn't what I had expected. His reply made it sound like it didn't matter to him at all. Are you mad? The question just came out of me. And Sora stopped.
No, I kinda always thought you were better at everything too.
It was probably natural for him to think that way. After all, I'm just a little bit older than him. But I was proud of such a natural thing. Then Sora looked up and stared at something straight ahead.
Riku, look! What's that light?
I also looked up. A faint but inviting light was visible from far away. We mustered the last of our strength and started walking toward it. However, the light wasn't an exit. It resembled the dim glow of a moon floating above a gloomy beach. Here, we could hear the sound of waves, which reminded me of our island home. But the place was otherwise enveloped in silence. End of the road.
Yep.
Sora quietly nodded in response to my remark. Put me down. I can walk. At this, he released my arm, and I stood up on the sandy beach. As Sora took a step toward the water's edge, I watched him from behind. No exit was in sight. Even from behind him, I could sense Sora's fatigue.
You know, maybe the darkness has gotten to me too.
Maybe he, too, had begun to give up on the idea of leaving this place. The thought of that made me feel a little dizzy. I fell to my knees on the beach, and then just collapsed. I couldn't move anymore.
Riku!
Sora rushed over and helped me up. This world is perfect for me. If this is what the world really is, just this, then maybe I should fade back into darkness.
Riku.
If the world is made of light and darkness, we'll be the darkness. Sora stretched his legs out and sat beside me.
Yeah, the other side. The realm of light is safe now. Kairi, the king, and the others are there.
That's what I mean. Hey, Sora, could you help me? I want to get down to the water. Sora gave me a small nod, put my arm over his shoulders again, and helped me stand up. We walked slowly toward the water's edge. My legs felt as stiff as posts. At least the waves sound the same, I found myself murmuring. Maybe it wasn't terrible to end up in a place like this that reminded me of our home. I continued the conversation from earlier. What I said back there. About thinking I was better at stuff than you. Sora responded as he gazed at the sea. To tell you the truth, Sora, I was jealous of you. When I said this, he finally looked at me.
What for?
I thought for just a brief moment. This was my repentance. The reason I fell into darkness was because of my jealousy of Sora. But it wasn't his fault. It happened simply because I was weak. Then I opened my mouth to speak. I wished I could live life the way you do, just following my heart. After I said this, Sora gazed at the horizon as he responded.
Yeah, well, I've got my share of problems too.
Like what? I smiled just a little as I listened to him.
Like, wanting to be like you.
This saddened me a bit, and I replied in the most cheerful voice I could muster. Well, there is one advantage to being me. Something you could never imitate.
Really? What's that?
Having you for a friend. For a moment, Sora looked astonished, and then he took a small breath.
Then I guess I'm okay the way I am. I've got something you could never imitate too.
He smiled as he replied, and looked out at the horizon. The dim moon floating in the sky at the world's end. Each of us had things that only we could do. Our hearts were both filled with the same kind of happiness. I was glad to be Sora's friend.